Good evening. Happy Monday to everybody. Hope that you had a good weekend. Were able to go to church and heard something good in the homily. I was just sitting and talking to some friends yesterday, and I just had a bit of an insight onto, uh, I don't know, maybe this isn't actually all that revelatory for some of you, but it made a lot of sense to me uh, already. We're not quite at Easter yet. We still got a couple weeks for that. I don't even think the Orthodox have celebrated Easter yet. So, I just need to hold your horses there, Mark. Um, so I was thinking about kind of the Alex O'Connor flavored atheism. And what do I mean by that? I mean a flavor of atheism that's only possible by somebody who lives in an affluent and comfortable society, right? An affluent and comfortable society. They are um, just maybe a little too into reading books. They usually don't engage in any kind of manual labor. They tend to be a bit more of a bookish type and have a, uh, a tendency towards materialistic ways of thinking. So we've all met this type before. And the most common argument, and the argument that they make, which usually has the most pull, goes along something along the lines of uh, if there was a good God in the universe, they wouldn't have created a world with so much suffering in it. You've heard that before. I don't think I'm introducing anybody here who's listening to this line of thinking and argumentation yet. So we've got this idea that there's this, there's something wrong with the universe, basically, because a good God would have made it better. Now, there's all sorts of problems with this position, and we can go ahead and thrash it later once we start letting people on freely. But there's one point that I thought that had a particular point of incoherence, and when you use the Jordan Peterson test on people's beliefs, what's the Jordan Peterson test? It's sit there and watch what the person does rather than listening to what they say. That gets you to the person's beliefs much more quickly and accurately. What's actually important to this person will usually um, manifest in their actions more consistently than it does in their words. If you've got a great deal of coherence inside of you, maybe your words and your actions can match up pretty nicely. So we can look at your Alex O'Connor types. They're usually very comfortable middle class types. They're oftentimes decent enough citizens, good workers. They might treat those in their family and their social circle pretty well. And very often, what you don't see is somebody who's given into despair. There's multiple ways to give into despair. One way could be to just abandon yourself to your passions. That's usually not a good long-term strategy. Your life will fall apart. The more money you have, the longer it might take for it to fall apart, but it will fall apart at some point. Or, other sorts of despair, ways that despair manifests. Obviously, the pinnacle of despair is taking your own life. And you don't see that sort of behavior out of these people. And so there's a real disconnect between what they say the universe is like and their own actions, because their own actions are usually pointing towards, well, actually, I'm just going to continue to be a productive member of society, according to kind of doing what everybody else is doing. And that's a really interesting thing. They're basically looking out at the world, seeing other people suffering, and deciding that the other people's suffering isn't worth it. And they usually don't bother consulting the people whose suffering they think negates the existence of God. And I've heard Pastor Paul mention that he's never met a homeless person who didn't believe in God. So there's this very interesting disconnect between what they say they believe, the suffering of the world makes it unworthy of a good God, and the way they actually behave, which is usually a fairly decent, very fairly decent citizen, not overtly criminal, and very often not destroying their lives with drugs or alcohol or other sins of despair. So I just noticed that incoherence, and now I've inflicted it upon you, and you can come in and tell me about how I'm correct about that or wrong, or we can all just beat up on Alex O'Connor today. Uh, let's take a look at some of these comments. I was told we were starting Easter now by a reliable Catholic source. Well, is it as reliable as me? Yeah, atheism is most common among Christians. That's interesting. Automated luxury beliefs. Mary Harrington talks about that. The David Woods debate. I did not. Yeah, obviously these people are experts for goodness and can judge such things at a universal scale. Likely they have a high IQ. And as we know, a high IQ solves all of your problems instantly.
True.
God was good. He'd submit to my idea of good, which is usually indistinguishable from a 2-year-old's idea of good. Just give me candy all of the time. Yeah. You did a commentary on it. Modernity is too cushy. That's why successful people are now lifting weights on purpose. Mark, don't give in to despair. Just turn the YouTube video off.
Well, I mean, to be fair, my Alex O'Connor debate was informed by me listening to Alex O'Connor when I came to visit you last when you were in DC. And it was very useful for not minding the traffic in DC at all because I was so angry at Alex. The other cars were nothing.
They were just
more
seemed as grasshoppers to you, huh?
a more existential and material threat, and I don't care at all. It's like this guy, I don't know where he is, but I'm gonna hunt him down.
It's magical. That's a level of apathy I didn't think would be possible in DC traffic.
No, it's possible. Just listen to Alex O'Connor while you're driving through DC and problem solved. You won't mind the traffic at all. You'd be so angry at his level of retardedness that just be like, oh, these guys are actually pretty sane.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, it was just the thought I had come up with for tonight. So
yeah, I mean, Mary Harrington talks about the automated luxury beliefs, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. And then they start talking about memes, and I'm like, no, you don't understand that at all. And you don't need to make your point, but whatever.
I think it's usually the case that most people aren't figuring out life on their own and are just kind of doing what everybody around them's doing.
Yeah,
that's normally just how it works.
That's what I was saying on the premiere and Pageau's premiere. He just did a video with Mary. It's still going on, but I had to come here and do this.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not. It's just a live stream, and who knows if anybody other than the people there will read it. Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is that unless you actually understand a certain few key facts, like mimicry, which no one's talking about except Gerard. Unfortunately, he's doing it in the worst possible way with the maximum possible evil. Then you're just not understanding. Like if you think learning has something to do with going to school, or that education is can be imposed from outside of you or something, or even for that matter, it's so weird, right? It's completely backwards, right? It is like, well, we can do this and we can do that. And I'm like, no, none of those things can you do. Like self-awareness, ridiculous concept. Self-transcendence, obviously a contradiction, right? Like I don't even how do you even talk to people?
It's literally, you just can translate that and to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right?
Well, you can't, because pull yourself up by your bootstraps is a very specific construct that works very, very well with certain assumptions. It's just that we don't realize the assumptions we've lost, which are you need distributed cognition, it's not optional. And so you've got it whether you realize it or not. And then that's right. Because this is that if you believe you do not have a religion, one will be provided to you without your knowledge or consent. It's the same lines. It's not the same point. It's the same lines. But then also, and this sort of came up in the Pageau talk there, you can't, when you don't assume a wholeness, you end up with all kinds of weird things, right? So you have to assume a purpose for evolution. Otherwise, evolution can't be doing what you claim at all. It's not possible. If there's no purpose to evolution, then it's not progressing in a non-random fashion. That would not make any sense.
Sometimes, like, evolution progresses and then it gets to something that really works and it stops, like crabs.
There's
like
right.
There
there's
haven't
a
been
lot
like
of, but
the crabs apparently
evolution,
just really fit perfectly.
it's just changes. But the way they
Mhm.
talk about it, the sciencey people, is they talk about it as though it has a telos. They just don't believe that it does at the same time, which is weird because I'm like, you can't say this is an improvement on that without stating a purpose. It's like, it doesn't, you can't do that. It doesn't function in the world. But you have to know there's a wholeness somewhere, and then you have to know that the wholeness is bigger than you. And then you have to understand that if there's a wholeness somewhere and it preceded you, because of course it did, because you were born like yesterday in any kind of scientific terms at all, right? Then there's a wholeness. There's all this purpose implied in the wholeness, but it's bigger than you. You can't understand it. So you need distributed cognition. So that is an optional. One of the ways that's enacted is through mimicry. And actually, it's funny. I got into an argument the other day on Twitter about this. Somebody was like, if you're copying or I think he used this term mimicking, actually. He says, if you're mimicking other people, you're not intelligent. And I'm like, no, intelligence is actually figuring out what to mimic. Like like the most
you
intelligent
basically should
thing
just
you
be
can
mimicking
do,
the best people.
right, is to figure out what to, well, not even necessarily the best people. It could be the best pattern. It could be the best part of nature, right? There's all this mimicry going on. It's not just you enslaving yourself to another person or something, indirectly through this magical force we call mimicry. Now, and nobody thinks about any of that way. But when you think about things that way, everything, like, memes are completely understandable. Still not good, but completely understandable. Like, why ideologies and how ideological possession works, completely understandable. It's like, it's not even remotely a surprise. And you wouldn't even need to discuss it if you understood that framing, which I think is the larger split, right? You have a bunch of people, we'll call them Anglo-Cathodox, because of course Christian doesn't mean anything, anything useful, right? And it's part of their baseline axiomatic assumptions of life. And so when they're using the same words as other people, because these assumptions are different, right? They have a known, shared, understandable, reasonable, correct context. The meaning of everything they say is totally different. But because of that, they read in a meaning that guys like Alex O'Connor cannot have, because they don't have a similar context. And meaning is content plus context. If you don't believe me, you can watch my video on navigating patterns. I'll try to only do the one plug, Father.
Okay. All righty. Well, we could do plugs here. It's an open mic, right? So
True.
if I can't let a few plugs in, I should just plug it up and go home. And there's sort of, this is the bit of, we all love Dr. Peterson here. He's taught me some very useful things that have benefited my life. But, we don't claim him to be a doctor of the church or anything like that. And the thing that kind of annoys me the most about him, and we can see it typified in this, is his understanding of how Moses received the law, right? And he's got like a kind of an interesting bottom up way of describing it, that like Moses is just hearing case after case all day long, and he's trying to figure out what justice is and what the rules are. And then he's able to transcend all of that, right? And that's like a really neat kind of evolutionary materialistic story there.
Emergent.
The problem is,
evolution's
no, the problem is, Mark, is it literally contradicts the text of the book of Exodus, which he's doing commentary on, where it says that Moses went up the mountain and received the law from God.
Right.
And like, that's how he got the law, is he got it from God. And it's like, you're actually doing a pretty magnificent case of eisegesis there when you're reading in this emergent perspective into what is very clearly an emanationist story.
Right. Well, but if you want the scary part of this, what if, and I don't know, like this is actually the first time I'm thinking about this at all anywhere, right? What if the problem is we haven't been training our kids in anything but emergence for a generation and a half, 2 generations, something like that, or largely, not all of them, obviously, but and then that explains all of this, because it's not a choice. They're not saying like we could explain it this way or this way. They only have one option. They can't explain it.
Yeah, they only have one set of tools. Yeah. And so at this point, right, it's like there was a discussion on BOM that was talking about the kids can't read. The kids can't read, right? That's right. You know, I think it was Laura actually furnished an example of like high school level writing, which was just utterly incoherent, right?
Yeah.
And so we don't have the ability to orient people towards a telos and like how to meaningfully construct a path there. And then we're barking at them, telling them not to use Chat GPT, right? Which is a very like kind of bottom up way of doing things. And so they're just like, look, why shouldn't we just outsource all of this to the AIs, right? Because they do it better than I do. Like there's literally, in an utterly flat world, there's no argument against just outsourcing everything to
that's
supposedly intelligent artifices.
Right. And then you're a slave to something else, right? Which is, I mean, this is the problem of socialism. I have a video called The Trick of Socialism. It's the same trick. The trick is they just lie about a condition of the world by using an individual frame and then saying, well, if this works on the individual level, then it can work on a group level, which is just absurd. A, it doesn't work on the individual level, and B, it can't work on the group level. And then they get you to go along with it. Like, see, you can work things out with your neighbor. Therefore, people can just work things out. And it's like, I have neighbors that I couldn't work things out with. And no, people as groups can't work things out at all. That's called death by committee, right? Or you know, how do you get a giraffe? You have a committee do it, right? It's the same statement. It's like, so we all kind of at one level know this, but when we can't put things together properly, you can make a point like that all day long and people won't get it. And that's like, this is swimming in my life. It's funny because Jacob had this quote friend of his or whatever from Twitter, although I guess they met in person first on, and he said the same thing about education. He said, no, they're not teaching my daughter how to read. Like, I have to teach her how to read because they're not doing it. It's like, well, of course they're not doing it because they're postmodern. They're going to impose you know, what's the author trying to say? And then you're going to find a frame, and then they're going to go, what if it's this other frame? And then they're going to destroy your ability to discern good wholeness from bad wholeness, which people get really close, but they never say that about the postmodern trick is just, you don't know what a good frame is or what a bad frame is. Well, now you can't make meaning in the world by definition, because you can't, if frames are arbitrary, then you're kind of screwed at that point.
Yeah.
But I think all the talk about this is arbitrary and that is arbitrary could well be the result of training people in emergence and never imposing emanation on them. And so they don't have any emanation thought skills, whatever that may look like. Right. And so at that point, you know, what do you do? And actually, maybe that explains nicely why Pageau's work works for some people and doesn't work for others. Because it's not just the crisis of faith versus meaning crisis split, for sure. right? And I've never been able to figure that out, but maybe this kind of explains it better. I don't know. I'm going to feed this
So
into
I
the AI
was
later for notes.
I was at the gym, and my trainer's an interesting guy. We have interesting conversations, and I brought up my point about how most of our calendar as a society is actually determined by the school system rather than by anything
Yep.
properly sacred, right? And
Right.
like public schools could be good if we had good people running them and a good program and a good society. So I'm not against the idea of there being a school board and them organizing things around a calendar, but they don't have, like, your local school board doesn't have the spiritual capacity to sustain a civilization. Like, that's a bit
Right.
too much for a school board to
Right.
manage right there. And so a lot of this is really a result of the recession of the church and
Mm.
inability for us to not shoot ourselves in the foot. So sorry about that, Mark. I'll try and do better. But
Thank you. I appreciate that.
we're trying to turn an aircraft carrier around here, and she don't turn quickly. The last time we tried to turn her quickly, we broke a lot of the steering mechanisms. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Even Mary Harrington and Pageau are talking about, the big bad enlightenment. And I'm like, I'm getting kind of tired of this, guys. The Enlightenment did nothing wrong. Sorry. All the big bad stuff you're actually pointing at is still called the Protestant catastrophe. Reformation. Disaster. It's still that. It's not anything. You can't trace it to anything else. Sorry. You can't. You can't simultaneously know about the existence of the United States and say the Enlightenment is bad, because that's a contradiction in reality. Right now, you
and I'm
can say that
proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free.
you can make the argument that America is not the be all end all, and the end is coming for America or something later on. But that's a difficult argument to make.
And we've
You
had a
can make
pretty good
alternative.
run.
Yeah,
Like, a pretty good run might be good enough,
well, that's right. That's why that argument doesn't work, among others. It's like it's still at least the longest running unchanged form of government since the Roman Republic, if not in the world. It depends on how you measure such things.
These things, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Just a
So yeah.
reminder to our folks at home that you can join in this conversation. And if you say something interesting enough, Mark might listen to it.
Nah, it's never happened before. Why now? No, I've not been here before, and no one shows up, so I know it's not me, despite the fact that everybody would like to blame me for such things. This
Yeah, that's
experiment, by the
true.
way, has
That's
been done a
true.
number of times, and
Yeah.
not just here, on other platforms. It's not me, guys. Sorry. I know I'm a convenient scapegoat. Gerard has a lot to say about that too. Uh, some of it's not wrong. But yeah, I think it's a good point to look at the larger picture, because it's too easy to carve it up and say, oh, well, the reason why America succeeded is because it adopted the Scottish Enlightenment, which is technically completely correct. Like, we didn't. I don't think we adopted any French Enlightenment at all.
No, I don't think they were really reading Rousseau. They were reading Locke and Hobbes. They were
Right.
also reading the classics,
Adam Smith,
and
right?
yeah,
Right.
and
Well,
Smith. Yeah,
and they knew it, but they
not that
knew
I
what they were
particularly
doing.
like Locke and Hobbes, but it kind of works. Yeah.
Well, Locke and Hobbes are good contrast for, like, they're good what not to do's, right? Locke's too on the idealistic side, and Hobbes is too on the negative side, we'll say, right? Too on the dark and scary path. But the thing is, like, they knew what they were doing. Unlike every other form of governance that's been tried since, that has just said we don't need a king. No, none of the founding fathers said we don't need a king. What they
They
said
were just
was,
going to put term limits on him.
we don't want a king, but we need all the functionality of a king. how do we do that? Oh, I know. We'll split the government up into two large chunks with further splittings down below, right? But make them explicit, because in Europe and a lot of the European countries, it's very locally ruled, and to a ridiculous degree. And then you look at Switzerland and the cantons, and it's like, whoa, but that's actually not that different from how the US is run ultimately. It's just that right now
Oh, it
we're
really
going through
should be one. Yeah.
well, yeah, I don't know. Cantons have their
Principle
own
of
problem.
subsidiarity. The principle of subsidiarity. I'm all about
Yeah.
the principle of subsidiarity. The people who are solving problems should do it at the closest possible level, right?
Right.
So I don't need the commander in chief in Washington, D.C. to worry about potholes in Fargo. Right? Somebody else should worry about the potholes in Fargo. And everybody actually understands it when it comes to roads. And we don't, I mean, there's like federal funding for highways and they go between states, so I can tolerate that. Yeah, so but that's the way it should work with everything. So I'm content with Congress regulating national foreign policy and interstate commerce,
Yep.
And then just really kind of leaving the nitty gritty to the states, and then we can have all sorts of experiments, right? I can watch what happens when you legalize marijuana in Colorado, and like, that doesn't look like it's really going all that well. It's a good thing we didn't do that here.
Yep.
And just run the
It is.
numbers there.
It
Looks like
is.
we got David showing up in the comments here. So good evening. Any advice for confirmation sponsors? I would say that you should actually take your role seriously there. And I've got a feeling that you or whoever you're advising would do that. To actually understand that you really do have you're taking on a duty there to help this person mature in their faith, because usually confirmation comes somewhere between third grade and high school if people are in the normal course of formation. I should like to see it a little more standardized in the United States, but we'll solve that problem someday. So yeah, just to take the duties you're doing, responsibility, and have it be further impetus for you to work on your own salvation, because now you're taking somebody else in underneath your wing there. So accepting the responsibility, good for you.
Barf. Sounds terrible. Sounds like work. Ugh.
It is work. I'm sorry. You should just give in to hedonistic despair.
Well, that was every time I listened to Alex O'Connor. Yeah.
No, you gave into rage then. That's not hedonistic despair.
How if it was rage, more like what is going on? Terror, despair about the future of the universe or something, maybe.
Yeah. Like, this guy has a big YouTube channel. We're hosed.
Oh, don't even see. I wasn't even thinking on those terms. Don't even get me started with other people listen to this idiot. I mean, some of his arguments were so dumb. I'm like, you can't tell me people listen to this and don't hear the dumb, but then they don't. And it's so depressing.
We got another question from RJ here in the comments. What do Catholics say amen means? It's a combination of I believe and yes, as far as I can tell. Amen? Amen.
Amen.
Yeah. It works so well on its own. You just kind of use it. You don't worry too much about what it means. You just keep on using it. The canon law studies are going just fine. Don't worry about me. It will not be causing me any despair. It just takes time. But I'm in 22nd grade now, and I'm just kind of used to it.
Not long left.
2 summers left. 2 summers left, and then I'll have some extra letters after my name. Actually, Sandy, I think that's the Beatles.
Is amen? That doesn't sound Latin at all. What is it?
No, it's a Hebrew word.
It is a Hebrew word. Okay.
Yeah. Just like hallelujah. That's also a Hebrew word.
So it's just 2 letters in Hebrew. That's annoying.
Look, I just use these words. I don't actually know what they mean.
Thank goodness for that.
Sandy. I'm just teasing right now. Don't take that too seriously. It's just let it be, let it be.
The Beatles got it from the Protestants. That's a lot of American pop culture is just Protestant rebellion and misunderstanding, and Eric Weinstein and mixing biblical quotes with Bob Dylan, just because he doesn't understand anything about anything. That just blew me away. I'm like, really? What's going on here? That's so inappropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. Sandy wants to know that they're British, right? And they also have Protestantism in Britain. It's called kind of the broad church.
It's
So
called the source of the main problem. And and
no,
and all of our Protestantism here, but also they were writing for the US. They weren't writing for their own people. Get
yeah, and
this
why wouldn't you write for the US? We got a much bigger market.
We had a market. No one like we invented a bunch of markets. Like there were a bunch of things that, especially in Europe, a lot of things were just done, like art was done for art's sake. That's kind of why they had government stipends and stuff for art, is because they were never expecting anybody to be able to monetize it, right? And it's the US that sort of flips that on its head. And you start looking into the history of some of these musicians, like Elvis and stuff, and you're like, oh. And then I mean it's still happening. Katy Perry, right? Her father's like a Baptist preacher.
Mm-hmm.
What? Oh,
There's all
oh,
sorts of jazz musicians that learned how to play their instruments in Baptist churches. Like
oh,
that pipeline is well understood.
they're co-opting the quote magical powers, which I think is actually technically correct, and using them, for lower means or lesser means. Yep, that's pretty much what they're doing.
Speaking of music, I don't know what you're referring to, so I wouldn't mind hearing a little bit more about this. The Hanukkah music in mass. The only thing that's coming to my mind is who is the King of Glory? How can we praise him? He is Emmanuel, the promise. Which I'm not terribly fond of that one because it's not Gregorian chant.
Yeah.
So oh boy, yeah, it doesn't really fit with Catholic worship as far as I'm concerned. Um, but I'm not sure what he's referring to because I know there's another. If you look at, it's one of the ancient chant tones, the tonus peregrinus, right, the pilgrim tone. Um, you can there's like a very similar ancient Jewish chant which they would use for the Psalms. That's like got a very similar structure to it, and so a lot of people suspect that the tonus peregrinus would have come from the time when the apostles were chanting the Psalms in Hebrew, and it got taken up in a somewhat Latinized form in the Roman Church, and then would survive to his day. Um, there's an actual book, and it gets used when they break out the guitars at the bongo drums.
No,
I'm a little
no,
bit insulted, Andrew, that you
no.
even had to ask what I thought of that.
Yeah. Guitars do not belong anywhere near a church. You do harps, you can do pipe organs, you could do like a lyre or something, nothing wrong with that. Or you can do the beautiful human voice. It's really not that hard, guys. Anything else
On
is
a very
completely
splendid
invalid.
occasion, a light dose of a brass quartet can work. Got to have
Okay.
a big church for that, though. It's got
I'll
to be a big
acquiesce.
church. You can't do it in a little. You can't do it in a little church. Sounds
It-
ridiculous in a little church. We got a big cathedral. You can do a little bit of brass, like just before the Hallelujah, and it works. Yeah.
yeah, all these unacceptable instruments.
Oh, you want to rant? Okay. Let's imagine that it's the 1960s, right? And like, you know, things aren't going well. And it's like, okay, we've got things that aren't going well. You know, we can feel that the faith in Europe is starting to get on really rocky ground. There's a lot of externalism in our piety, but there's not, you know, the kind of interior holiness that we should be looking for. Right? Now, you got two paths when you get into this scenario. One is you can go back to the old bread and butter Catholicism, right? You could do the things, you could return to the source. A lot of people are saying that we needed to return to the source, right? You know, maybe these manuals that we've been using aren't really working any well. We can go back to the study of the fathers, study of sacred scripture. Does that be an idea, right? Or you can just flood the market with novelties. And that's what a lot of people really did. But the thing is that, well, it was just new for Catholicism. It really wasn't like new in general because we were just copying the Protestants. And, you know, if you really want to copy the Protestants, how's about you just go become Protestant and leave the rest of us alone? But, you know, you said this, I think you said this last week, Mark, and it was really a really useful thing for me to hear. The church was changing a few things slowly, you know, and then people got the signal, oh, we're changing things. That means we can just change things now. And then a lot of people went crazy with it. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's why Mark keeps on talking about mimicry, because it's like, oh, we're putting parts of the liturgy into the vernacular now. Well, let's have Elvis play guitar during Mass then.
Yeah.
Like for some people, they can't distinguish between those two things.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And if you're mimicking the Protestants, you're making Protestantism equal to Catholicism. And then people in Montreal are going to leave the church in droves. Shocker. Like, no, what did you think was going to happen?
well, old-fashioned repenting in sackcloth and ashes when things aren't going well. And going back to the things that work, you know, there'll be certain things that we can leave behind, right? Like, you know, marching bands were apparently a big thing in the late 19th century. You could show up with a marching band, you could give people a show, you could send the good word when you've got their attention, and like that was a workable thing. So it doesn't have to be exactly what happened, but like the regular old repent of the things that aren't working, search your own soul, and yeah, pray for renewal. All of that, all of it. So, David's asking, can we touch on the covering of statues and crucifixes during this time period? Well, because it's not Easter yet, Mark, we will talk about what Lent is all about, and Lent is all about kind of a discipline of our senses. So we've got prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. You're making sacrifices of pleasure, sacrifices of time, sacrifices of material goods in order to separate yourself from worldly desires and strive after holy things, right? And so there's this asceticism that's all throughout the Lenten season. When we get to Passion Tide, as it used to be called, but after the fifth Sunday of Lent, we begin to even have the church itself experience sort of a diminishing of the senses, right? So we've got these beautiful statues, hopefully they're beautiful anyway, and artwork and all these sorts of things. We begin to cover that up as a sort of fasting of the even of the eyes to increase the anticipation of these things being revealed during the Easter season. So covering of statues and crucifixes during this time period. I'm sure that goes back at least to the Middle Ages. Is an asceticism for the eyes to get you just a little bit hungrier for the Easter celebration. So that's how it works. Go and do likewise.
I see.
It's unfair how many beautiful churches are in Rome when so many of us are stuck with ugly ones. Just pray for asteroids to hit the right churches, you know. Unfortunately, most of them are made out of like concrete and really ugly bricks, and they're basically indestructible, and we're going to be stuck with them until Jesus comes again, or until we
Yeah.
have a lot more money to tear them down and rebuild them. So,
No, we're just gonna build beautiful ones in other places.
yeah, and then the ugly ones will kind of die. That happens slower than you'd think, though.
Well, with that attitude, it will.
I'm just going to continue praying for the asteroids to smite the ugly churches. You know, at night, and the tabernacle always miraculously survives, so the Blessed Sacrament isn't destroyed. Like, there's ways of doing this properly. But no, it's always the beautiful churches, isn't it? We had a fire in December in one of the beautiful churches in our diocese, and it's like, I could think of 30 churches I'd rather have burned down before that one.
Mm, yeah, it's too bad. There's lots of ugly churches.
Yeah. Ugly music and ugly churches. And we wonder why things aren't going well.
Yeah, yeah. No connection at all. Well, we wonder why that statement right there isn't the statement that everybody's making about why things aren't going well. Like, really? Is it that hard to figure out? Really, this is what you're struggling with?
I mean, I think about some of it's like a sunk cost fallacy. It's like
Yeah.
you worked, imagine you being a young priest in the immediate aftermath of the council, and everybody who's in like a position of authority in you in the seminary and the bishops were all just doing new things now. And so you've been informed that you can do new things, and these new things are going to work. It's going to work. It's really going to work. And so you like dedicate your whole life to all of the new things, and it really doesn't work. And it'd be really hard to turn that around,
Yeah.
like
Well, and
internally.
but it's bigger than that. Like, everyone's been told that they can understand things. There's no way any single person can understand. And they've been told they can manipulate things that there's no way they could ever understand even those small things well enough to manipulate them. And yet there they are. And the
It's
argument
like
is always, but it's been done before or something. It's like, well, what was done before may not be understood by you. And the fact that it worked may have had, you know, causes that you don't see.
remember talking to a priest of a certain generation, right, ordained in the 1970s, and there was a lot that I could admire about what this priest did in the way that he conducted himself in pastoral care, in the way that he treated his employees, in the way that he treated other priests. So he wasn't like some deeply evil Machiavellian, nonsense. But like he had these ideas about liturgy. And I remember the one that really stuck in my head. Somebody asked him, well, at your church, why don't you ring the bells during the consecration, right? So, at Mass, the priest holds up the consecrated host, the priest holds up the chalice, you ring the bell 3 times there, right? And his answer was, well, the reason we used to do that is because the priest was whispering the prayers in Latin, and people needed to know when the consecration was happened. But now that we say the words in English out loud with a microphone, then we don't need to ring the bells anymore. And it's like that was very revealing to the mindset to me of
Yeah.
priests ordained in that. It's like the way they're trying to understand the symbolism was this only functions in one way. And
Yep.
it's like it's like the bells are like the perfect thing for it because it's not even one sound.
Right.
Right? Like bells are
Exactly.
extremely complex with sound, and like the bells that people like have a ton of tonality in them. It just rings the whole way up. And it's like we're heralding the Eucharistic presence of our Lord with the bells. We're drawing our attention with something that like
Yeah.
dogs understand what a ringing bell means, right? Oh,
Yeah.
and it was just
But
like,
that's that materialism.
okay, that's how we got here. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a materialistic way of thinking. And I mentioned this on your server. Karl Rahner was the biggest theologian in the world, like 1950 to 1990. He was what was being taught in all these seminaries, and his theology of diaconate ordination was, we've got this guy, and everybody agrees that the work that he's doing is good, and so we should be raising him up. And then, like, the bishop's ordination is just a recognition of what he's already been given, is this
Mm,
task in the community, rather than we have this task in the community that's come down to us from God by divine
mm,
institution,
right.
and we're calling this gentleman to fulfill it for us.
Right.
Completely different stories right there. And
Right.
that was the stuff that was being taught.
Yeah.
Like Bishop Barron actually wrote about this in a collection of essays, something new evangelization, of his conversion from Karl Rahner to Thomas Aquinas as a grad student. And it took until he was a grad student until he was able to make that conversion, because seminaries were nuts back then.
Yeah.
And seminaries in the United States are a lot better now. So there's reason for hope.
Yeah. But that whole idea that you have one linear, discrete, simple explanation that involves propositions, no less. Well, now that everybody can understand the propositions, you don't need the musical aspect that links heaven and earth. Is it that's the flattening of the world? That's the linear and discrete stuff I talk about on my channel, right? That it's all right there. Like you kind of that's why I'm always puzzled. I'm like, you're looking around at this flattening all over the place, and you're recognizing some of it sometimes, but has it occurred to you that it's just we're just drowning in it? Because that's that's what seems to be happening.
I'll answer RJ's question right here. Are some seminaries better than others? And absolutely, yes, they are. But I would say the general quality of seminaries in the United States from the past 40 years has been transformationally improved. So if
Yeah.
you're to take them all as a total picture, although it happened at different places and different times in each individual seminary.
Yeah,
But
this idea of the consistency of the Catholic Church is so silly to me. And just like you guys got to go to like different Catholic churches with different cultures and see how different it is. You got to
mhm,
you got to highlight Ixnan's previous comment though, because that's fantastic. Yeah,
people would
maybe
see more miracles.
people would see more miracles. Maybe they would. I think that's deeply correct. Like, because you need the contrast to see, and when you're not experiencing the miraculous sound of the bell and not just the stupid words that you unfortunately maybe shouldn't actually understand, then yeah, you're not getting it. You're not seeing
Yeah.
miracles.
And yeah, that's a real interesting thing. Because, like, did you watch that video I posted in response to your query? It was on your server. It
Yeah.
was about the beatification miracle for Solanus Casey,
Hmm.
right? Like a genetically trackable skin disease healed because she was praying next to somebody's bones.
Yeah.
And it was on Fox News, right?
They
Like,
never they never talk about this stuff. That was one of the things is an Orthodox, Orthodox of America church. There's a Greek Orthodox church here too. There's an Orthodox of America church across the river. Um, and like there was a guy there. I think actually I have to go back because if he wrote this book, I'm gonna buy it. But he was talking about the flame that comes out of the tomb and all that. And I was just like, how come I've never heard of any of this? And he's like, no, you don't understand. It's on YouTube. And I was like, what? And he said, oh yeah, you can watch videos of scientists using measuring equipment on this stuff. And I was like, why aren't we talking about this every freaking day of the, you know, and all the stories you hear, and no one ever talks about them.
I have never heard of a Protestant Eucharistic miracle. And outside of a Lutheran church, that would be a great scandal if there was one.
Right.
I will always give Martin Luther credit for trying to have the real presence of Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, even though he actually failed. Like, he was at least wanting the right things, so we'll give him that credit.
He wanted all the right things. Everybody after him, because again, once you start the change thing rolling, change as such becomes pointed out. Yeah.
I haven't done enough apologetic pugilism to know what a Protestant would say about a Catholic Eucharistic miracle, but I really don't care. Unfortunately, sometimes it's mold, so the bishop needs to be responsible and actually investigate these things properly before going public with it. But yeah, probably just
They don't understand miracles at all. Protestants just have no reasonable conception of miracles.
That sounds like a great question for his Friday Q&As. Go throw it in the comments. We'll see what he has to say about the host beginning to bleed on the corporal. I literally am the worst person to ask, what would a Protestant say about this?
I don't know.
I'm in too deep in the Catholicism.
I mean, you were so excited to drink the grape juice out of the plastic cup at Thunder Bay. I thought you were gonna fall over dead, like right there. I was like, uh-oh. This is like the level of it. It wasn't even like a shock on your face. The shock was so vivid that it was like a shock wave in the room. And you stayed relatively stoic, but I like felt this, like, I gotta get out of here. Short of like I can't be here. I can't
Like-
be near this.
Like I've been exposed to the guitar music, right? Like, I can handle that, and
Ugh, I can't.
honestly, like, the praise and worship music, I don't think the place for it is at mass, but I don't think there's like zero place for it. Like,
Yeah, I agree.
praise and worship music around a campfire, that's fine. I can even see it during Eucharistic adoration, because there's guidance from Rome that I think is actually fairly well pointed out, where like that's actually a decent enough place to have popular piety begin to intersect with the liturgy there. So I could even see it during that. So like when they were doing the guitar music, I'm like, all right, I'll just sing along. Right? I know half of these hymns already. And then the preaching, you get to the preaching, and it's like, okay, I know what a sermon is. I've heard PBK before. It's usually at least decent. He didn't follow the lectionary at all, though. Like, I could tell they were using the Revised Common Lectionary, and he just came with his own sermon, which I think is a little rude, but whatever. Could you not just say, hey, like, I want to use these readings, or I will just submit to the readings that you guys are using? But no, it was the grape juice in the plastic cup that, yeah.
Everything else you were fine. That comes out and it's like bang. No, it was such a shock too, because I knew that happens, but yeah.
I would not take communion in a Protestant church.
Didn't you
That
leave?
would be
Didn't
No,
I
I
mean
didn't
not
leave.
the building, but I thought you left the room or something because you just no, okay.
spiritually, yes, but my body remained
Yeah.
there.
Got that. There we go. That's fair.
I did not. I would not take communion in a Protestant church. It would have to be a fairly extreme case of me even taking communion in an Orthodox church, mostly because they wouldn't want me to,
They wouldn't.
and I would
give-
want to be a good host and like not take it, or a good guest, I mean, and not like take it. So, like, even an Orthodox church, it would be like a very rare and notable thing, because like we acknowledge them to have apostolic succession, valid ordinations, and a valid Eucharist. So it's not, and they won't be serving it in plastic cups.
No,
Like that
no.
that would be like underground church concentration camp bunker level liturgical necessity there.
Do they make their own wine? I know they make their own bread on site at each church, like crazy people, which I think is the Catholic should do that.
As long as you got the right people doing it. The way Catholics receive communion is different. And so the unleavened bread versus the leavened bread, we got to make sure we're doing that properly. I have no idea if they make their own wine. I always recommend people spend the extra money for the proper sacramental wine, just to know that beyond sulfites, nothing's been added, and sulfites exist in wine already. So we just add more of it to be a preservative. It's really a tiny quantity anyway. So that's what I think. I bet you a lot of monasteries would if they had the climate for it.
Yeah. No, I think all that should be done on site where possible, or by the local monastery and distributed or something. I don't. Yeah, I really like that the Protestant church is. I mean, the Orthodox church is like, no, our bread's here. Like this is where we do it here. Thank you very much.
Would bread make it be a job for the deacons? I think very often it was done by religious sisters. Even
Yeah.
in this country, there'd be like a convent where they would be doing they'd have like the big presses to get the nice, clean, unleavened bread hosts.
The orthos don't care. They make sloppy bread and cut it sloppily, and they don't.
Yeah,
In the U.S.
they also have a very different way of distributing communion,
Oh yeah,
which
yeah.
like you can't just discount that. Like so a lot of times you'll hear well-educated Catholics say, we should just go back to confirming infants the way they did in the ancient church and giving them communion. And I'm sympathetic to that idea, because that's like the ancient pattern right there, and the development of reserving communion to the age of reason and confirmation to the bishop is a later development with some theological reasoning behind it. So it's not all bad. The thing is that we've forgotten how to give communion to infants, which is like a tradition that the Orthodox have actually maintained. And it's like, man, I don't want to go and like try and reinvent something after all the stinking reinvention we've already taken on. Like, let's just figure out what a permanent deacon is before we go to
Yeah.
reorganizing the sacraments of initiation at that level.
Yeah, all the stupid crackers are made in like a factory in New England, unfortunately for the stupid Catholics. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, me neither, but they're the only ones selling them. So
They cornered the market. How did that happen?
because we're dumb and we love losing.
True. Okay, fair.
The friars needed communion wine, so they started growing grapes, and they realized they do very well in California. I 100% believe that story. Apparently, because it takes a really long time to actually make a winery make good wine.
Yeah,
Like
it's
there's
5 years
just
or
like
10
some
years. Yeah, it's insane.
yeah. So having like a wine tradition somewhere means that you've got a forward-thinking civilization, and people can take the time to do things. Wine and cathedrals, it just seem to go together.
Yeah. Rice wine is dangerous. That's sake, and apparently the Germans have some Weisswein. Very dangerous stuff.
Yeah,
High alcohol
and it's also
content.
invalid matter for communion, so got to be made from grapes.
Interesting. Interesting. I
I
don't know.
mean,
Did this God character, did he think this through, really? Because grapes, if they don't grow everywhere, then is he just saying like, if you live here, you're screwed? Like, what's the message? Come on.
the wine doesn't have to be good.
True.
It just needs to be wine,
That's true.
right? Like I can imagine, like Scandinavia, That's when they invented the scruple spoons, you know.
Mhm.
So you'd have like a little spoon that would give you an ounce of wine and then a scruple of water, which was an actual measurement. It was like 1/24th of an ounce.
Mm.
And then that would be how the priest would, like just this little tiny drop of wine in there, because it's like, oh, we're in Scandinavia and we got to import this stuff, and that's not cheap. So we're gonna make this bottle of wine last a really long time. That's how the story goes in my head, though. I've never actually read that in a book.
Books are evil,
But it's a
burn
good
them all.
story, so it's a good story, so I'm gonna stick to it.
Are you going anywhere for Easter, Father, or
So the cathedral.
just to the cathedral? That's it. No family after or anything.
I mean, I'll go to my parents' house afterwards. We'll see which of my siblings make the trek up for Easter. Yeah, but there are no big travels. And then the day after Easter, I'm baptizing some people's kids. They're coming into the church at the Easter Vigil, and they've decided not to try and take their 2-year-old and their 4-year-old to the 3-hour mass at 8:30 in the night. Because the best case scenario, they would just fall asleep, uh, and they just weren't going to count on that. So they'll get babysat that night, and then I will baptize them on Easter Monday. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Excellent, excellent. That sounds good. I'm gonna be in New England for. I gotta figure all that out. I gotta figure out my travel plans, and then I will be in the Dakotas at the end of May.
That is, you may as well just stay in South Dakota then, because that's when I'm going to Washington, D.C.
You're gonna be in DC already?
Classes start May 28th.
Oh, all
You
right.
just
Well,
you'll just stick to South Dakota, I think. There's no need to come to Fargo unless you want to visit a ghost town, because after Memorial Day, nobody's in Fargo. They all leave.
really?
Oh yeah, lake country lifestyle. Everybody goes to their lake. I don't have
When's
a lake.
Memorial Day? But is it
It's
early
pretty.
this
It's
year?
like, yeah, it's like May 23rd, I think.
Oh, it's early. Oh, okay. Yeah. No, we're gonna visit Sally Joe, and then we got to go to Boston. So Cape Cod, actually. So we'll be
Well,
on
that's a
Cape
quick
Cod for a
drive.
week. Oh yeah. No, yeah, it's ridiculous. It's gonna be 3 days out a week, 3 days to Boston a week, and then a day and a half home. So that last leg's not too bad. But yeah, it's and we're gonna be in New England for Easter, so it's a lot of travel. A lot, and I just got back from Las Vegas and the canyons and stuff in Arizona, so back on the travel train. I think the
And
winter was terrible. I wish we would have traveled more in the winter because it's a horrible winter.
you got a lot of rain, right?
We got a lot of rain, we got a lot of cold, unprecedented cold, lots of rain. It's
Mhm.
completely nuts. Yeah, it was a
Well,
mess. The
just
whole thing was.
remember, every time it was like 35 degrees in South Carolina, that means it's like -20 in Fargo. So
Yeah, that just makes me wonder why anybody is living there or how. But yeah,
I
seems
wonder the
insane.
same thing sometimes. I mean, the how is actually pretty easy. You just stay inside.
Right, right, right.
But
Yeah.
the why comes back to me. I think what it comes down to is I have friends here and all my stuff is here. So I think I'll just stick around.
So I have to make a plan for DC in July then, huh? Okay.
You are free. You're
I don't.
free. I release you.
I don't think so. I think I screwed up last year, and thanks to RJ, we slightly redeemed it. But yeah, no, I gotta get you out. Otherwise, you'll just sit with your head in the books forever.
To be fair, like I would prefer to have my head in the books when I'm in Washington, D.C., because I don't like it there. I don't want to have my head anywhere else. Like I'm here for the books. I'm just going to have the books.
There's more museums to see, Father. There's more museums to see.
I can do the museums. I was very, very happy about the second Air and Space Museum campus by Dulles Airport. That was amazing. SR-71 Blackbird was worth the entire trek into Virginia for that. Just like that one thing, that was enough. Like seeing an SR-71 in the flesh, just we can't build ridiculous aircraft like that anymore. I don't think we have the civilizational capacity to do so.
We don't. We'll go visit it again. I got to get you over the Bay Bridge Tunnel because that is a marvel. And we got to visit Bruce. So
yeah, I'm thinking I'll probably take my car out this time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
which could make it a little easier for you. Like how easily can you get from get a flight to Reagan?
True. Probably pretty easily. I haven't tried, but yeah, no, that's
the Udvar Hazy Center. Thank you, Orandu. That's a
I remember him well. Weird names.
Udvar Hazy.
Sounds good. You got to do the Bay Bridge Tunnel. It's amazing. Every time I go over it, I'm just like, this is unreal. To talk about civilizational capacity to build. We're never going to build anything that cool again. That's for sure.
Okay, is it a bridge or a tunnel?
It's both. It's 3 bridges, maybe 4, and 2 tunnels.
Okay.
And it's the scariest freaking thing in the world because you're looking going, the bridge seems to mysteriously end in the middle of this enormical body of water that looks indistinguishable from the ocean.
So what you're saying is it's scarier than the Mackinac Bridge?
I don't know because I haven't been over the Mackinac Bridge, but
Mackinac Bridge is pretty intimidating. Like you're way up there. Sometimes they close it because of high winds.
This gets closed all the time because of high winds.
Unsettling.
Well, the unsettling thing is you
Okay.
can see the end of the bridge, and then there's no more bridge, and it's not obvious what there is. And the thought always comes into your head, like, what if you just fall off the edge in the middle of this gigantic body of water that is huge? And you're like, I don't know. What would that look? Maybe we're going to find out. I'm not sure. And it's huge. I mean, the Chesapeake Bay is enormous. Like, it's unfathomably huge.
They keep us pretty busy in those summers. It's like it's 5 days a week of class, and there's no other way to do it to get 6 credits in a month. So you really just got to hack away, and that's the time I have access to the library. So I got to hack away on my thesis too. The reservation of the Blessed Sacrament outside of consecrated spaces. For those of you who are curious about what I'm going to be writing about.
Cool.
The answer is you probably shouldn't be doing that. But anyway.
Oh, I like that answer.
Yeah. Like maybe certain circumstances, but otherwise not.
I can get behind that. I can get behind the no. I like the no. No is good. Keeps you from doing bad stuff and screwing up.
No rice wine.
No rice wine. That's a no.
Yeah. It's too dangerous.
It really is. Have you ever had sake? It's whew.
Yeah, it's a little it goes down a little too easily. Gotta be careful with
sake.
that.
Sake is not like I can't be around sake because I actually will drink sake. Sake's really good. I had some
Oh
sake.
boy.
My friend brought me from Japan a million years ago, and I had it for years because I would just take it every once in a while. It's a tiny amount warm. It was delicious, absolutely delicious. Yeah, there's a few things. Clove cigarettes. That's another one that just
Just can't have around because you'll use it, huh?
I've had clove cigarettes a couple times. They're super bad for you too because they burn real hot. But man, are they good? I'm just saying.
He's just
Yeah.
smoking cloves.
Yeah, you smoke cloves. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Oh, it's delicious though. I mean, it really is. It's really amazing.
Does it have any nicotine in it?
No, I mean,
Oh,
unless
okay.
cloves have nicotine, I'm not aware.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah, clove
You learn
cigarettes,
something every day.
sake, and rum and coke. Although rum and coke is easy to resist because it's hard to mix rum and coke correctly. Because I don't like alcohol in general. So if I'm near alcohol, I'm like, ugh, burn, bad, fire. Yeah. Got to be the native North American in us somewhere that I'm just like, ew, fire burn, fire bad.
Firewater, yeah.
It's fire water to me. It really is. Except for sake. And sake burns really bad, but I don't care, which is worse. Like this is how we defeated the Native Americans.
Oh, it wasn't smallpox, huh? It was the firewater.
The smallpox
1-2
came
punch
before
right
the
there.
colonists. Nobody pays attention to that. Came way before the colonists.
Oh, well, nobody's ever told me that. So
Christopher Columbus was in Scotland before he went down and got the funding. I'm just saying.
I'm not kidding.
The Scots were trading with the native North Americans. There's almost no question about it. And that's why he was in Scotland, and he was verifying that story or getting charts or whatever. And then he went down and got the funding.
Were the Scots going to like Newfoundland or?
We don't know. Were the Scottish Knights Templar burying treasure on Oak Island in Canada? Probably. I'm still there. I've been there since day one. We'll find out.
I think you'll find out about
New Oak Island tomorrow evening. So,
okay, is that going to be one where they finally find the treasure?
they have so many little bits of treasure now. They've got Roman coins. They're like, there's a Roman cut coin on the island. Like, what? There's a Roman uncut coin on the island, like from way back. I forget how old it is. Yeah, there's all that has gotten really interesting. Like, they've got evidence of the 1200s. It's not great evidence, but they've got evidence.
That makes that. I mean, that's actually like a really interesting thing because there was something about either Christopher Columbus or King Isabella or Europe, probably actually a combination of all three, that made the discovery of the New World in 1492 actually stick in people's imaginations in a way that it hadn't when the Vikings and apparently the Scots were going over there.
Well, the Scots didn't tell anybody, and the Vikings didn't really tell him. One of the thesis actually that I've heard this before, but on Oak Island, one of the guys came on and said, like, yeah, they think the Vikings actually brought the Templars over there. And I'm like, maybe kind of not. The Scots, the Vikings, are we talking about two different people here? Because I'm fairly sure the Vikings were all over the UK. So it's sort of hard to differentiate those at some point. So, yeah, I mean, I think that, but there was always evidence for that. There's still a lot of weird, there's the knight in Western Massachusetts that no one has been able to explain. There's a knight carved into a stone, and no one knows how old it is, or isn't. It might not be old, right? There's a stone structure in Rhode Island somewhere, and I forget where, but like right off the coast. And yeah, I think they call it Napoleon's Watchtower or something goofy, but there's evidence it's much older, like way older, way before the 1400s. So I don't know. The only thing they have they do have, I think, 4 or 5 artifacts that are from the 1200s or from ancient Rome, that they found on Oak Island, which doesn't say when they were put there, but it says at least, they could have come from that time. But they also have some rock alignments that are like freaky. So who knows? Like you don't know what's going on there. No idea.
Yeah, yeah. No, the thing that's interesting to me though is what was it about Europe at that, like by 1492, that makes the rush for colonization that followed after that happen, whereas it hadn't previously? Like that's the interesting question to me.
Well, it I
Is it
mean,
like the
Europe
printing
got
press and like these stories can spread much more quickly?
it got full, right? So if you read Colin Woodard's American Nations, he starts talking about like, well, look, England was full, and what were the landed gentry going to do with their sons? Well, they sent them out to colonies, and there were no unpopulated lands, right? Like they kind of knew where everything was. There were clear lines off by the Silk Road. Everybody knew there's countries there. The Muslims are in the way anyway. Can't even get to India, right? Except by boat. Can't get to China except by boat. They're long and treacherous journeys. The journey across the Atlantic's actually kind of not bad by comparison to going around the Horn and stuff.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
journey is nothing compared to that. And
Mhm.
so now you have a new trade area opened up, and it just so turns out they get there. And if you don't count the 3 or maybe 4 colonies that got wiped out by the Native Americans, which everybody conveniently forgets to mention, um, there's no one there to trade with because smallpox has already hit the area, and that's why Plymouth exists. The natives wanted the colonists in Plymouth because there was a village that had gotten wiped out there already. And so they were kind of like, no, we kind of need people here. Could you guys settle this area, please? And they're like, yeah, well, the Cape is nice, but sure, we'll settle that. It's also why the natives in Massachusetts didn't kill them immediately for stealing stuff on the Cape Cod, because Miles Standish was a jerk. Basically, he's a horrible human being. But yeah, that's basically what happened. And unless you're from the area and study the history, you won't kind of understand any of that. But and then the more you learn about the southern colonies down here, like Jamestown and stuff, there's a Dare County in North Carolina. Virginia Dare, weird, right? And so it's like, what's going on there? And that's a very old county. Like it's older than the records. So there's a great deal of indication that they didn't get entirely wiped out. So yeah, there's all this weird stuff. But I think that the problem is that because Protestantism is kind of on the move and making waves, that because the first set of settlers to the colonies is sons of landed gentry, and they basically go into 2 waves. One is what's called mid-Atlantic, which is the DC area, right, into about halfway down in North Carolina and all the way up into Maryland. The
Mhm.
second set of settlements is the Caribbean islands, the Barbados, roughly speaking, and it's I call them the barbaric Barbadians, that then it's the sons and daughters of the sons and daughters of the English landed gentry who move into the deep south, and they just have a whole different mindset about slavery because they work slaves to death, unlike everybody in North America who's like, cheap house slaves, cool, right? And that's the growth of the plantations and all that. And there's technical reasons why there wouldn't be a South if not for slave labor.
So your understanding of this then is that Europe was generally uninterested in the possibility of colonizations until a certain amount of social, economic, and population recovery after the Black Plague made it really convenient for landed gentry in Europe
Yeah.
to send their second and third sons off to do something useful. and not
Right.
squabble over the inheritance. So
Right.
there was
Well,
like a demand for colonization at that point.
right. There was no demand, and there was no where to receive them until Columbus, who's a loudmouth and just yapped at everybody, probably pissed off the Scots because they had a nice, quiet guild trade with North America that nobody knew about, right? Which because we're right at the end, right, where its secret societies were real and every guild had trade secrets and they had trade route secrets. Like trade route secrets are still big, right? And so like that got collapsed by Columbus and his fat mouth, basically. I mean, he stole the information. He probably should
Well,
have been
he's
allowed to live with it.
Italian, you know.
I didn't want to get into that, Father, but you got a point there. I mean, you said
We
it,
found this
not
great
me.
place. It's very warm. It's come on, everybody
Well,
should go here. It's great.
and he behaved so badly that you know even that's the Portuguese, right? Even the Portuguese punish him when he gets back. They're like, "You did what to the natives? Oh no! You're getting all kinds of censored, and we're taking all your stuff." And they really nailed him to the wall for what he did, because that was unacceptable even to the barbaric Portuguese, who otherwise were just completely terrible to the natives. But the English weren't. But you got to remember, Plymouth and the successful colonies in New England, those are all Protestant refugees from England, pretty much.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I mean, first they went to the Netherlands, and the
yeah.
Netherlands were like, we'll take anybody. We love everybody. We just freed ourselves from the Portuguese. Um, Wait a minute. These guys, they got to get
A
out.
little too
And
nuts. Little too nuts. Yeah.
well, and they go. The thing people don't realize, because the way it's sort of taught in school is, oh, the industrious Protestants, the Puritans, they get together and they rally and they have the equivalent of bake sales or whatever, and they get enough money to build the boats and leave. Right. Meanwhile, what actually happens is the king, who's the cousin, third cousin, whatever, of the English king, goes, dude, these are your people, and we're very grateful that you gave us a bunch of money to take them in. Oh, you didn't know that, did you? But also, we got to get rid of them. So we'll put in some money to get rid of them, but you got to put in the rest. And then that's how the boats happened. It wasn't, I mean, to be fair, again, these are the reason why they're not just jailed is because they're the sons and daughters of landed gentry, right? And so they just have bad religious beliefs and they can't stay in England. And then the Netherlands is like, yeah, their religious beliefs are so bad they can't stay here either. So the societies kind of get together and make sure they have a place to go, because there was a place to go. It's not, what are you going to do? Exile them to India? They'll be killed immediately, right? Like, there's no other place to go at that point. But there is all this land that's really like North America. You could talk about the Indian populations, but by that point, because smallpox had already ravaged northern North America, I don't know if it came from the south or not, because I don't think we have the data, but it really, there was a lot of empty land. I mean, there was no contention for land, even just east of the Appalachian Mountains. And that's kind of a big deal. And a lot of the revolution, according to Colin Woodard, is about expansion. What expansion means in that time is going west of the Appalachians, which you're not supposed to do. The king says, no, you can't go there. And you can sort of sneak around in Georgia, obviously, but because they end in northern Georgia, but it's really hard to understand, and nobody understands. I got Bruce stuck on this now. Nobody understands the first American Indian War, right? Which is because they like nobody gets it. Like, it's the French that caused the Native Americans to go against English colonists because they're persecuting a global war against England, and we're just a small, tiny set of battles in that war. And when you couch it that way, the whole reason why we won makes more sense. Also, they didn't
It was
think
just kind
our
of like
America
a
was
side
so
theater. Yeah. It was like, let's try getting the colonies, see if that does anything. But they weren't going to put a whole lot of manpower into it.
Well, they did. The problem was France was fighting a larger war in Canada
Mm.
and a larger war, in the Caribbean colonies, partly because their strategy was divide and conquer. They're like, look, if England doesn't have a complete front from north to south, then these crazy colonists, there's only like 4 of them anyway. What are they going to do? Form a government? Come on. Like nobody does that. No one's ever done it before, for example. Like people don't account for that. No one ever did anything like that before at all. That's never happened before. There's no precedent for the United States or anything like that. And 25 years later, we've got reports from written report. You read the reports. I mean, I can't read the French ones, but apparently the French said the same thing. French and English spies in the colonies are still hanging out, right? Writing back home. Any day now, the government's going to collapse and this whole thing is over and you'll be able to move your troops in. Still, they were still like there 25 years later because we don't appreciate how special this is or how at the time there was no reason to believe any of it was going to work, much less last, right? So yeah, it was, and then of course the French get the bright idea to copy us, even though they don't understand any of what happened, and so they just have a stupid revolution which hasn't ended yet. Maybe someday, maybe they won't go to a 6th republic. Who knows?
Really not up to me.
No, I mean I'm still like 3rd act of the Great War when, and if we can just stay out of it as Americans, that'd be great. Pull the troops back today, make sure there's no Americans anywhere near Europe for a while, and then see what happens.
3rd act of the Great War. You think that's coming, huh?
Oh yeah. Did you have you heard these lunatics? Like, you know, I forget which country it was. One of them was like, "We're going to send 500 troops to Ukraine," and I'm like, "Really? What are you high? What do you think that?" And then England's like, "We're going to devote troops to the ground in Ukraine," and I'm just like, "No, you're not. Like, what are you, dumb? You're not going to do that." But they're just spoiling for war. I'm like, why do you want this war that you can't win? Like the last 2 times you tried this, it didn't go well for you guys. Are you really going to do it a 3rd time? You're really
The
going to do it a
oldest
3rd time, huh?
oldest trick in the book. Oldest trick in the book. What's the oldest trick in the book, Mark?
Go ahead, Father. You say it.
Don't get into a land war in Asia. Just don't do it.
Just don't do
Why
it.
do we call Alexander the Great? Because he managed to do it, right? And he stuck to the south where it was warm. He didn't go up into Russia. There was nothing really to conquer there, so you can
Yeah.
understand his reasoning behind it. But
Well, no, the interesting thing is Napoleon actually conquers the city, and they're just like, yeah, we don't care. And he's like, what do you mean you don't care? I conquered your capital city. It's over. And they're like, yeah, nah, we're not doing that today. And he's just confused. And of course, they've destroyed the place. So no one can actually stay there. So it's no longer a capital city in essence. It's just a shell where you can't live. And then Napoleon is like, what am I going to do? Because he has no supplies. He's like, well, I guess I have to go home. I have no choice. Like, you idiot.
yeah. Don't get into a land war in Asia. It's just
Yeah, I don't think Arandu's correct. I don't know what definition of war everybody keeps using, but it's not any definition of war that is useful to use. You'll know when war starts. Lots of people will start dying. In the thousands per week, sort of a thing. Until that happens, you're not actually in a war. Until the number of deaths actually goes above the mean number of deaths in a year for the globe, which has not happened yet. You're not actually in a war by definition. Just in case we're confused about how this works.
just a regional conflict.
Yeah, but there's regional conflicts all the time. It doesn't affect
Yeah.
the
Oh, it's just
worldwide
like
death rate. Yeah, it's
what
fairly
is happening
constant,
with the
actually.
guns and the tanks. You're calling that a regional conflict rather than a proper war.
Well, that might be a regional war, but it's not a world war. Like to have a world war, you'd have to have the world death toll go up, not just the death toll in Ukraine and Russia. Like,
Yeah. Okay.
the death toll in any 2 countries can go up when they have a war. Yeah, absolutely. It goes way above the mean. absolutely. Yes, then it's a war, but you would have to do that for the world to be a world war. It's not. It's like people make these difficult, like super complicated definitions of things, and I'm like, none of these things have complicated definitions, guys. None of them. None of people 50 years ago or 75 years ago didn't even have the measures you're talking about. And yet they still managed to use these terms effectively. But now you have these measures and nobody can use these terms that in any meaningful fashion. I mean, I've got this great critique of Eric Weinstein's talk at ARC. And it's just like he just uses the word war over and over again in the beginning. And then criticizes people for using the term quantum gravity over and over again to fool them. And I'm like, you did the same thing. Like, don't be trying to fool anybody. You did exactly the same thing. Well, if it's bad behavior for them, it's bad behavior for you. Get on board. But yeah, just all this talk about war is just, it's not healthy, right? War is the breakdown of order. We don't have a breakdown of order, right? Not a widespread one that results in massive casualties. Thank goodness. Let's hope that continues in the United States. I have no hope for Europe because they all want to send troops to Ukraine. I understand that some of this is we want to show Donald Trump and the United States that, we'll do what they want or some nonsense bravado BS, but also Europe's been a powder keg for decades. And I don't think that's going to change. Like, I think the only way that's going to change is if they fight it out. Unfortunately, I don't see what has fundamentally changed culturally in Europe that means the Great War is actually over. I'm not seeing it. I mean, I hope I'm wrong and all, but also, like, please show me that I'm wrong, please. Maybe I'll sleep better at night. Who knows?
You should sleep well at night knowing that you live in the United States of America.
True.
The only reason I don't sleep well at night is because the Bismarck closes at 2 and the drunks go walking by my window, howling and yelling about something.
You need better quarters, Father.
Hmm?
Better quarters or triple pane windows or something.
Yeah, I don't think we got the budget for that. Well, just I usually just roll back over and go back to sleep. It's not that bad, but I still whine about it because what else would I do?
You need new screws for your drywall. I just read about them like yesterday. They're awesome. Yeah. They're apparently horrifically expensive. But they actually have a spring in the middle, so they hold the drywall in, but they somehow dampen the sound and it like filters out like 30% of all the types of noises that are common in apartments. So the types of noises you're talking about. And without adding any bulk, obviously, because you're just replacing the screws in the wall. And I was like, oh, that's fascinating. Now I want some. I have no use for such a thing, by the way, but I'm like, now I want some.
You don't. Like, why do you want that?
Well,
you
actually,
live on a swamp.
There's some road noise here that's pretty bad, but I don't think drywall screws are going to help that. I think a lot of that.
Might need to put up like a sound barrier by the road.
Yeah, well, we'll have more plants this year. So Sarah's busy working on the garden, and oh yeah, you wouldn't even recognize the place now. It's completely different. It's like, what happened here? Lots of stuff.
I'll be able to figure out what happened.
I don't know. A lot of stuff has changed. There's 3 trees gone and everything. So
yeah. I know how that change takes place. When a lazy guy reaches for stars in the sky, you can bet that he's doing it for some doll.
Some of it's just plain old capability. I don't think I could do the flooring of the pole shed without 2 people. In fact, we're going to tear it all up tomorrow and put sand down to level it and then put all the flooring back. That's the plan for tomorrow morning. So
assuming it's not raining.
Assuming that it's not supposed to. It rained all day today, pretty much on and off, but like downpours, and I couldn't record. Like that wasn't happening. It was that loud, which happens down south. So yeah, again, I don't think the drywall screws are going to save me there. So I don't even have a tin roof. You would think you wouldn't even hear it, but nope.
Well, if you got enough water coming down, it'll happen. It'll happen.
20 minutes of torrential downpours. That's what the South is all about, man. It's wild. It's wild. I love it. But yeah.
We get thunderstorms here too. In fact, it's been pretty dry. We could use a little more precipitation. You send it up our way, okay?
We didn't have any thunder, actually. Well, for one of the storms or two of the storms we did, but we didn't have thunder. You're just sitting there and it's like maybe it's gray out, although sometimes it happens when it's perfectly sunny. And then all of a sudden you hear this like the closest thing it sounds like is a train, only like the tracks are there, like right there, and then it just washes over everything. And you're like, what the hell? Even now, right? Years and years in, I'm like, what the hell is that? And oh, yeah, that's right. There's a big wall of rain coming at us. No big deal. No big deal.
This is why everything around you is alive, Mark. It's because of all that rain.
That is true. That is true. Well, and the pond is now draining correctly, so it's okay. I mean, I got to go out there still and fix some of the beaver damage, but at least it's not super flooded like it has been. I don't have to go out there every day and clear the overflow. That was getting boring. I don't know where my two beavers are, but they don't seem to be here right now, which is good.
You didn't have your friend come take care of them, huh?
He's supposed to, but he hasn't done his work. And now I have two beavers and not one. So now I'm pissed off. Like, no, we've got to dispatch this problem immediately. This is going to get exponentially worse soon.
Maybe I just need to take a trip and take a somewhat more direct approach to them.
There's a tree stand right where it needs to be. That if you were sitting in the tree stand when they go to fix the overflow, you could pop them real easy. Why he hasn't sat in the tree stand in the evening and just popped them, I don't know.
Anyway, I'm not gonna worry too much about it.
My buddy from New Hampshire might come down too. I'm like, oh yeah, come on down. Bring the guns. Take care of the beaver.
You just need a 22.
No. Bring all the guns. I got targets. We'll set them up. It'll be.
Oh, okay. Well, if you just,
I do want it set up because I've got the dam and I've got this place that you can get behind the dam pretty easily, and I'm like, yeah, I got to set up a range over here somewhere, and I just got to decide if I can do it on this side or if I have to cross the overflow and build a little baby overflow bridge. So yeah, I'm gonna do that at some point. That's been on the books forever. I'm like, one of these days, I'm gonna do this. I've got it all planned out because I have a dam. I have a natural berm, and it's way high, right? So I think at that point it's 14 feet.
It should be high enough. Should be pretty safe.
Yeah. It's
as long as you're not combining firearms and alcohol, you should be fine.
Even if you're combining the alcohol, I don't know that you could hit anything at all.
Yeah, well, alcohol gives you all sorts of inspirations that you might just not want to deal with.
You're really far down over there. Like you're really low. So pretty much all around you. And then if you angle up, I don't think you'd hit anything. I think you'd be too high.
Yeah, well, the bullet will stop somewhere. Let's not find out where.
Right. Let's not test. I'm not going to test it, but I do want a little outdoor range. I'd love to have one. That would be fantastic. I've got all kinds of glass bottles too. So I told Sarah the other day, I was like, it's okay if you don't want to keep the glass bottles, but I'm keeping them because I'll shoot them. We'll get to. She's like, why are you keeping all these bottles? I'm like, oh, you'll see. Because I like targets. That's why.
Don't go to the target range in sandals. Make sure you've got good closed-toe shoes on.
That's right. Well, it's in the woods anyway, so. Yeah, I want to build.
Some people will wear flip-flops everywhere.
I'm not guilty of that often.
Yeah, you just let people know. You just let people know
all the time. No, in the woods you wouldn't anyway. In fact, I can't wear the flip-flops on the dam anymore because things are growing on the dam. And I have to get the lawnmower out there.
You just need to give a fellow like Almond Tree a warning about these things.
I will warn Jason. Although to be
That's all
fair,
I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
when I get the well, we'll see. You know what? Well, if I get another chance to get free sand, that would be cool because then I can put sand in the whole area around the shooting range. But the sand that I have has got to be used for the pole shed right now because we got to level that whole area out for the floor. And the floor is, important because we use the outdoor, we use the pole shed. So I haven't gotten a chance to use it much this year, just for the book club. Speaking of book clubs, when is our
I think you shouldn't expect that until the summer. I
uh,
think we can fire it back up in the summer.
it was just like one Sunday a month, right?
Yeah. I uh,
No,
I'm just in a busy period of life right now, and that's just the way
priests
things
don't do
are.
anything all day. This is excellent, by the way. Although I've got my
Recovery of Education. Who's it by?
this guy James S. Taylor. I don't know if you
James
can read.
S. Taylor. Yeah,
Yeah.
he wrote. Didn't he write The Buffered Self, or is that somebody else? That's Charles
I-
Taylor. Never
Yeah, it's
mind.
Charles Taylor. No, this guy's like converted to Orthodoxy, I think. And because we got this at Symbolic World. Well, Sally got it for me because Sally's awesome at Symbolic World. So it's an Orthodox book, basically. He's very close to the way we talk about it, but there's some little things where I'm just like, oh, materialism. I hate materialism.
It
It's
sneaks
these
in.
little things.
It sneaks in. It sneaks in.
Oh, it's hard to avoid. We're so just soaked in it, right? We're just freaking drowning in materialism and we're flooded with information and we're being told all the time we can filter all this ourselves like a bunch of lunatics. I'm like, I don't know who told you that. That's can't possibly be correct. I mean, look at some of the YouTube channels and their followers. Like Alex O'Connor has a follower. What? Like, how does anybody listen to that guy? And I know he's retarded. Like, I don't get it. But I don't know. It just drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. I weep. I weep for humanity, Father. Ark published the Eric Weinstein comment. I'm like, dude, you guys had so many talks and you chose to put that on your YouTube channel? Like, forget about the fact that he did the talk, but like that's the one of the ones you chose to highlight. Did you listen to it first? Really? That's what you chose. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So we shouldn't be expecting much from ARC, huh?
Well, I mean, you shouldn't have anyway. I go over that in my video, but yeah, I mean, people copying a bad idea that isn't working if that idea or to the extent to which that idea works only works because they're in a different class of people from you. It just seems like I know there's stupidity in the world, but I don't know what that is, but it's way worse than stupidity. You're missing so many things and it's just the intellectual class should not be allowed to try to do things. Like I think literally we should lock them in their ivory towers so they can't do anything but talk to each other because they're just dangerous when they do stupid things like art. I mean, it's just so. I think I'm going to do another commentary from the ARC thing because this one guy was just talking. I haven't seen it yet, so I was going to do it as a react video, but like the title was enough. I'm like, you can't possibly tell me that somebody was dumb enough to frame things this way. But yeah, and then I wake up in the morning and the world is back to the chaos, and I'm like, oh no. Please save me. Like I'm going back to sleep now. My dream world is
Sleep.
far less chaotic than this garbage.
Sleep. I'm already thinking about sleep, Mark.
Uh-oh. You've
I
got
mean,
to
it is dark
deliver on
outside.
you've got to deliver on the live stream though. You get another like 15 minutes, man.
Yeah. Or not.
Well, it's your live stream. I can't do anything
think-
about it.
I think we've had enough fun for tonight, actually.
Okay. Well, I'm
So-
fully submitted, Father. So I
Yeah.
go where you.
I think we've had enough fun for tonight, and it was fun. Some useful things there, stuff I didn't know about Christopher Columbus and the New World, but it's dark outside, and I think we're just going to go ahead and go to bed. So, good night, and God bless
Good
you
night.
all.
Okay.